At trial, my little sister got her own lawyer to show I had nothing. My parents insisted they gave me every chance. My mother cried, my father agreed. My lawyer kept cool until Judge Quinn paused and said, "I checked the property and tax records. Someone here is lying." The words from Judge Ramirez hit me like a physical blow. The fluorescent lights above buzzed, a stark contrast to the thumping in my chest. I sat behind a heavy wooden table, scarred with decades of nervous initials, the sound of my own breathing suddenly too loud. My lawyer, Arthur Reynolds, continued to organize his meticulous files, a quiet pillar of calm. Across the aisle, my younger sister, Chloe, perched in her chair, a smirk playing on her lips, while her attorney, Julian Thorne, whispered in her ear. Behind them, my parents, Sarah and David, sat grim-faced. Sarah dabbed at her eyes with a crumpled tissue, a performance I knew all too well. David's jaw was set, that familiar, stubborn line I'd seen my whole life. I never thought it would come to this. Family court. Lawyers. A judge deciding which version of my life was the truth. Growing up in Denver, our 3-bedroom house on Maple Avenue wasn't grand, but it was ours. David bought it in 1989 for $78,000. It had a backyard where Chloe and I built snow forts every winter. Sarah worked as a dental hygienist, David managed a hardware store. We weren't wealthy, just comfortable. Chloe arrived when I was 4, a tiny bundle with dark hair and lungs that could wake the whole neighborhood. I remember watching her tiny fingers uncurl, feeling a fierce surge of protectiveness. She was mine to look after. That instinct, terrifyingly, never truly faded. By the time I was 16, the dynamic had shifted. Chloe, then 12, had mastered manipulation. She'd break something, blame me, and I'd end up grounded while she got ice cream. Sarah would sigh, "You're older, you should know better." David would just shake his head, retreating to his garage. I started working at 15, bagging groceries at Evergreen Grocers, saving every dollar in a shoebox. Colorado State University had a veterinary program I'd dreamed about since 4th grade. Chloe, meanwhile, seemed to get everything handed to her. New clothes, a laptop, even writing lessons because she once mentioned horses were pretty. Why do I have to buy my own school supplies? I asked Sarah one August afternoon before junior year. Her hands moved rhythmically, folding laundry. "You have a job, sweetheart. Chloe's too young to work." My frustration simmered. "I'm saving for college." She just smiled. "College is years away. School supplies are now." So, I bought my own notebooks, pens, and a graphing calculator that cost a week's wages. Senior year brought acceptance letters, but Colorado State offered no scholarship. Tuition was manageable with loans, but I'd need help with housing and books. I showed David the paperwork, my hands shaking with a mix of excitement and fear. He barely looked up from the TV. "We don't have that kind of money lying around." I pleaded. "I'm not asking for everything, just maybe $1,000 to get started. I'll pay you back." He scoffed. "Your mother and I have expenses. The roof needs work. Chloe's braces aren't cheap." Chloe's braces had been paid off 2 years prior. I was asking for my future. He finally met my eyes. "You've got a job. Figure it out." I took out student loans that would follow me for decades. I moved into a dorm room the size of a closet, with a roommate who microwaved fish at midnight. I worked 20 hours a week at the campus library, carrying a full course load. I called home every Sunday because Sarah said it hurt her feelings when I didn't. Chloe got her driver's license at 16. David bought her a powder blue Honda Civic. She totaled it 3 months later, texting while driving. He bought her another one. I graduated in 4 years with a biology degree and enough debt to purchase a small house. I got into vet school in Minneapolis. I packed everything I owned into 6 boxes and drove north in a beat-up Toyota whose radio only played AM stations. Vet school consumed my life, 18-hour days, grueling practicals. I found camaraderie with other exhausted students who understood that sometimes dinner was vending machine crackers and coffee counted as a food group. During my second year, Grandpa Richard died. He was the one who taught me to fish, slipped me $20 bills, and actually asked about my dreams. I borrowed money I didn't have to fly home for the funeral. The service was small, at Summit Chapel. Afterwards, Sarah served sandwiches in the church basement. David pulled me aside near the coffee station. Richard left the Maple Avenue house to your mother and me. Paid off. No mortgage. Hope flickered in my chest. That's wonderful. He cut me off. We're keeping it. Chloe will need somewhere to live after college. She'll need help getting established. You managed on your own just fine. He walked away before I could respond. I flew back to Minneapolis that night, crying silently in seat 23B. Vet school graduation came on a Saturday in June. I finished in the top 15% and secured a job at a small animal clinic in St. Paul. No one from my family came. Sarah said the drive was too far. David claimed he couldn't get time off. Chloe didn't bother with an excuse. My friend, Olivia, and her parents took photos of us in our caps and gowns. Her mom hugged me tight, whispering, "We're so proud of you." I nearly broke down right there. The clinic in St. Paul was everything I'd worked for. I treated dogs with hip dysplasia, cats with respiratory infections, the occasional rabbit. My supervising vet, Dr. Brennan, was dryly humorous and respected my opinions. The pay was modest, but after years of ramen, it felt like wealth. I rented a studio apartment, adopted a three-legged cat named Jasper. We were a matching set, both of us patched together, making it work. Chloe graduated high school and enrolled at Denver State University. David bought her another powder blue Honda Civic. She majored in communications, which seemed to involve group projects and social media complaints. Sarah and David paid her tuition in full. No loans, no debt. It's different now, Sarah explained during one of our increasingly rare phone calls. We're in a better financial position. I snapped, "You were in a better position when Grandpa Richard died and left you a house." Her voice went cold. "You always were jealous of your sister." I stopped calling every Sunday after that. Years passed. I got promoted to senior veterinarian. Moved to a one-bedroom apartment with actual sunlight. Started dating Ethan, a teacher who made me laugh and didn't find my work stories about impacted anal glands disgusting. Chloe drifted through college, changing majors twice, then moved back home, rent-free, to find herself. Ethan proposed on a hiking trip to Long's Peak. We planned a small wedding, just close friends and family who actually cared. Sarah RSVP'd yes, then called 2 weeks before the ceremony. "Your father's back is acting up. We can't make the drive. The doctor says he needs to rest." It was 3 hours. "Chloe could drive you. Chloe has plans that weekend." I got married on a Saturday afternoon in October with Ethan's family filling the rows on both sides. Olivia, my maid of honor, squeezed my hand during the vows, pretending not to notice my tears. Ethan and I built a good life. We bought a small house in Lakewood with a yard big enough for Jasper and the 2 rescue dogs we adopted. Work was fulfilling. Weekends meant farmers markets and hiking trails. We talked about starting a family. Then David called on a Tuesday evening in March. "Your mother had a stroke." My world tilted sideways. I drove through the night, Ethan beside me. Sarah looked so small in that hospital bed, tubes and monitors surrounding her. David sat in the corner, his face gray. Chloe was nowhere to be seen. "Where's your sister?" I asked. David sighed. "She's dealing with this in her own way." Sarah recovered slowly over the next 3 months. I drove down every weekend, shopping, cooking, managing medications, arguing with insurance companies. Chloe showed up occasionally, usually to cry about how stressful it all was for her. During one of these visits, David asked me to step outside. We stood on the driveway where I learned to ride a bike, where Chloe had later crashed her powder blue Honda. "Your mother and I have been talking about the future," he said. "What about it?" "We're getting older. We need to make arrangements." A warning bell went off. Arrangements? "We've decided to transfer the Maple Avenue house into Chloe's name. She'll take care of us as we age, and she deserves security after everything she's done." I laughed, an ugly sound that surprised both of us. "Everything she's done? I'm the one who's been here every weekend for 3 months. I'm the one who reorganized Sarah's medications and set up her therapy appointments. Chloe shows up to Instagram the hospital cafeteria food." His expression hardened. "This is our decision. Chloe needs support, and you've always been independent. Independent because you forced me to be. You didn't pay for my college. You didn't come to my graduation. You missed my wedding because Chloe had brunch plans." He cut me off. "We gave you every opportunity." My voice rose. "You gave me nothing. Every single thing I have, I earned myself, while Chloe got a free ride through life." He turned and walked back inside. I stopped visiting after that. Sarah called, her voice plaintive and confused. I tried to explain, but the words came out angry and hurt, so eventually, I stopped answering. Ethan held me while I cried. Jasper curled up on my lap, purring his strange, three-legged comfort. Life continued because it had to. Then the certified letter arrived. Chloe was suing me. The petition claimed I had manipulated our parents into promising me their assets. It alleged I had taken financial advantage of their vulnerability during Sarah's illness. It demanded an accounting of all funds I'd wrongfully obtained from the family estate. I read the document 3 times. What assets? What funds? I'd never taken $1 from them beyond childhood birthday money. Ethan found me at the kitchen table at midnight, still staring at the papers. "What is this?" I whispered. "My sister thinks I stole from my parents." "That's insane." Chloe had hired Julian Thorne. That firm charged $400 an hour. We both knew where Chloe would get that kind of money. Sarah and David were funding this. I hired Arthur Reynolds after interviewing 6 attorneys. He had white hair, reading glasses on a chain, and a reputation for being relentlessly thorough. His retainer cost $5,000 I couldn't afford, but Ethan and I pulled from our emergency fund, and I picked up extra shifts. Arthur reviewed everything: bank statements, tax returns, loan documents, property records. "Your sister's case is completely without merit," he said during our second meeting, "but we'll need to defend it properly. This will cost you both financially and emotionally." "Why would they do this?" I asked. "Sometimes families create narratives that justify their own actions," he explained. "If they convince themselves you're the villain, they don't have to feel guilty about how they treated you." Discovery was brutal. Julian Thorne requested documentation going back 15 years. Every bank transaction, loan application, every financial record of my adult life was laid bare. I provided everything. There was nothing to hide because I'd never taken anything. Then came the depositions. I sat in a conference room while Julian Thorne asked questions designed to make me look manipulative and greedy. Had I ever asked my parents for money? Yes, once for college. Did they give it to me? No. Had I resented my sister? What kind of question was that? Arthur objected frequently. Chloe's deposition was apparently a performance. Arthur told me she cried multiple times, claiming I'd always been jealous and manipulative. She said I tried to turn our parents against her. She produced a list of alleged loans they'd given me that I supposedly never repaid. None of that happened. I told Arthur. I know her documentation is fabricated, but she's convincing when she cries. Sarah and David submitted affidavits supporting Chloe's version of events, claiming they'd given me numerous opportunities and substantial financial support. Reading those sworn statements felt like swallowing glass. These were the people who'd raised me, who I'd once believed loved me, putting their signatures on lies. The trial date arrived on a Monday morning in October. I wore a navy suit Ethan helped me pick out. Arthur carried his files in a leather briefcase that had seen decades of courtrooms. The courtroom was exactly like the movies, except smaller and stuffed with stale air. Judge Ramirez presided, a woman in her 60s with sharp eyes and no patience for nonsense. She'd reviewed our briefs and didn't look impressed by either side. Chloe sat with Julian Thorne, wearing a dress that probably cost more than my monthly car payment. She dabbed at her eyes with a tissue before proceedings even started. Behind her, Sarah and David looked somber and righteous. My side of the courtroom held Ethan, Olivia, and Dr. Brennan, who'd taken the day off to support me. Their presence was the only thing keeping me from falling apart completely. Julian Thorne opened with a statement painting me as a master manipulator, accusing me of years of extracting money and poisoning my parents against my innocent younger sister. Arthur's opening was quieter and more measured. He outlined my actual history, loans for education, years of independence, recent caregiving during Sarah's stroke. He promised to show that Chloe's claims were fiction. The first witness was David. Julian Thorne led him through a narrative I barely recognized. In this version, they'd paid for my college, given me money for my wedding, and supported me through veterinary school. We gave her every chance, David said, his voice heavy with manufactured disappointment, and she took advantage of our generosity. Arthur's cross-examination was surgical. Mr. Patterson, do you have any cancelled checks showing payments to your daughter for college? We gave cash. Any receipts, withdrawal slips from that time period? It was years ago. You claim you paid $20,000 for her undergraduate education in cash and kept no records? We trusted her to remember. But you do have records of paying for Chloe's education at Denver State, correct? Those tuition payments appear on your tax returns as educational expenses. David shifted. That's different. How is it different? Chloe needed more support. Arthur pulled up my student loan documents, still bearing my signature and payment history stretching back over a decade. These are your daughter's student loans. If you paid for her college, why would she need to borrow $63,000? I don't know what she spent that money on. The loan documents clearly state they were disbursed directly to Colorado State University for tuition and fees. The money never touched your daughter's hands. Julian Thorne objected. Judge Ramirez overruled him. Sarah testified next, crying on schedule. She talked about how much she loved me, how she tried to be a good mother, how I'd grown distant and cold. She claimed they'd contributed $5,000 to my wedding. Mrs. Patterson, Arthur said gently, do you have any proof of this $5,000 gift? A mother shouldn't need proof of helping her child. Of course not. But in a court of law, we do need evidence. Is there a check, a bank transfer? Any financial record whatsoever? We gave cash at the reception. Arthur produced my wedding records, the venue contract, catering bill, photographer's invoice, everything meticulously documented because Ethan and I had budgeted for months. Your daughter's wedding cost $8,000 total. She and her husband paid for everything themselves. I have their bank statements showing the exact withdrawals. Sarah's tears increased. She's lying about all of this to make us look bad. Ma'am, these are bank records, not testimony. They don't have opinions. Chloe took the stand, wearing an expression of wounded innocence. She described a childhood where I'd bullied her, stolen from her, made her life miserable. She claimed I'd manipulated our parents during Sarah's stroke, trying to get them to change their will. I had to protect them, she said, voice trembling. Someone had to stand up to her. Arthur approached her with the same careful courtesy. Ms. Patterson, you claim your sister attempted to manipulate your parents during your mother's illness? Yes. Were you present during your mother's hospitalization and recovery? Chloe hesitated. I visited. How many times? I don't remember exactly. Arthur produced sign-in logs from University Hospital and Sarah's Physical Therapy Center. These records show your sister visited 42 times over 3 months. Your name appears 3 times. Would you say that's an accurate representation? I was dealing with emotional trauma. I'm asking about frequency of visits, not your emotional state. Your sister drove from Lakewood to Denver every weekend. Correct? I suppose that's approximately 6 hours round trip. She did that every single weekend for 3 months while working full-time as a veterinarian. Meanwhile, you live 15 minutes from your parents' house and visited 3 times. Is that accurate? Julian Thorne objected. Judge Ramirez told him to sit down. Yes, Chloe admitted quietly. During this time, when your sister was supposedly manipulating your parents, did she ask them for money? I don't know. Did she ask them to change their will? She must have. I'm asking what you actually know, Ms. Patterson. Do you have any evidence? Any conversations? Any documents? Any witnesses showing your sister requested financial compensation for her caregiving? No, thank you. That's all. The trial continued for 3 days. Julian Thorne brought in a handwriting expert who suggested documents might have been altered. Arthur brought in my bank's regional manager who confirmed every record was authentic and unmodified. Beck called a family friend who claimed I'd always been difficult. Arthur called Dr. Brennan, who testified about my character and work ethic. On the 4th day, Judge Ramirez called a recess before closing arguments. Something had shifted in her expression, a tightening around her eyes. We returned after lunch. Julian Thorne delivered his closing argument with dramatic flair, portraying me as a con artist who'd betrayed family trust. Arthur responded with a calm recitation of facts, numbers, and the complete absence of evidence supporting Chloe's claims. Then, Judge Ramirez did something unexpected. She set down her pen and looked directly at my family. Before I issue a ruling, I want to address something. Her voice carried an edge that silenced the room. This court takes allegations of financial exploitation seriously. I've presided over many such cases, situations where vulnerable elderly people are genuinely victimized by family members. Julian Thorne straightened, sensing vindication. However, Judge Ramirez continued, I've also seen cases where false allegations are weaponized to punish family members who refuse to participate in dysfunctional dynamics. This appears to be the latter. David's face went pale. Sarah clutched Chloe's hand. Prior to trial, I took the liberty of reviewing public records independently. Property records, tax filings, court documents. This is standard practice when claims seem facially implausible. She pulled out a folder. The property at Maple Avenue was transferred to Mrs. Patterson in 2008 following Richard Patterson's death. No mortgage, as stated. Tax records show no liens, no encumbrances, no financial complications whatsoever. Arthur leaned forward slightly. The Pattersons filed taxes jointly for 43 years. Not once did they claim educational expenses for the plaintiff's daughter. They claimed such expenses for the defendant's sister for 4 consecutive years. Bank records subpoenaed by this court show no large cash withdrawals during the relevant time periods that would support claims of cash gifts. Judge Ramirez's expression hardened. Most tellingly, the plaintiff carries student loan debt of $63,000 that has been in repayment for over a decade. The defendant's sister has no educational debt. The parents' financial records show direct payments to Denver State University on her behalf. The courtroom was absolutely silent. Julian Thorne's confident posture had evaporated. I reviewed the property and tax records, Judge Ramirez repeated slowly. Someone here is lying. She looked directly at my parents. Mr. and Mrs. Patterson, you submitted sworn affidavits claiming you provided substantial financial support to your older daughter. Those statements are contradicted by every single piece of documentary evidence. You claimed cash gifts that left no financial footprint despite both of you having maintained checking accounts for decades. You claimed your daughter manipulated you, yet records show she was the only family member providing consistent care during Mrs. Patterson's medical crisis. Sarah started crying again, but this time it sounded different. Panicked instead of performed. Judge Ramirez turned to Chloe. Ms. Patterson, you initiated this lawsuit claiming your sister stole from your parents. Yet your sister has never received any inheritance, any gift, or any financial support from them beyond what any parent might provide to a minor child. You, meanwhile, have received full tuition payment, multiple vehicles, free housing, and now stand to inherit their primary asset despite providing minimal support during their time of need. Chloe opened her mouth, but no sound came out. This lawsuit is not just without merit. It is frivolous and vindictive. Worse, it required your parents to commit perjury in support of your false claims. Judge Ramirez's voice was ice. That is a crime. Julian Thorne stood quickly. Your Honor, my clients were perhaps mistaken in their recollections. Your clients submitted detailed sworn statements about specific dollar amounts and specific events. Those are not honest mistakes. Those are lies. She shuffled her papers with sharp, angry movements. I am dismissing this case with prejudice. The plaintiff's claims are entirely without foundation. Furthermore, I am sanctioning both the plaintiff and her attorney for bringing a frivolous lawsuit. Ms. Patterson, you will pay your sister's legal fees in full. Mr. Thorne, your firm will be referred to the Bar Association for investigation. Julian Thorne sat down hard, his face ashen. Mr. and Mrs. Patterson, I could hold you in contempt for perjury. I could refer this to the prosecutor's office. She paused, letting that sink in. I won't because I suspect you've been manipulated by your younger daughter just as thoroughly as you manipulated each other into believing these lies. But understand this, you have committed a serious crime in this courtroom, and you have done so in service of cruelty toward a daughter who owed you nothing and yet gave you care anyway. Sarah was openly sobbing. David stared at the table. Chloe looked smaller than I'd ever seen her. Judge Ramirez's gaze finally landed on me. Her expression softened slightly. Ms. Patterson, I apologize that you were subjected to this. Your family's treatment of you has been appalling. I hope you surround yourself with people who actually deserve your loyalty. She banged her gavel once. This court is adjourned. The aftermath happened in fragments. Julian Thorne rushed Chloe and my parents out through a side door. Arthur shook my hand, promising to file the paperwork for fee recovery. Ethan wrapped his arms around me in the hallway while Olivia and Dr. Brennan formed a protective barrier against curious stares. I didn't cry. Maybe I was too empty. Maybe I'd already mourned this family before the trial even started. We drove home in silence, Ethan's hand holding mine. Jasper greeted us at the door with his lopsided gait, demanding dinner, completely unconcerned with human drama. Life required tending. 2 weeks later, Arthur called. Chloe had liquidated her savings account to pay my legal fees. The amount was $37,000, money Sarah and David had apparently been funneling to her over the years. I asked him to donate it to a scholarship fund for first-generation college students. Sarah tried calling once. I let it go to voicemail. She rambled for 3 minutes about misunderstandings and family healing before the message cut off. I deleted it. David sent a letter, 2 pages of handwritten justifications, explaining how they'd only wanted to protect Chloe, how they thought I was strong enough not to need them. He didn't apologize, not really. He just explained. I burned it in our fireplace. Chloe sent nothing. Maybe she had nothing to say. Or maybe she was still convinced she'd been wronged. Some people never stop casting themselves as the victim. Judge Ramirez's words stayed with me, though. I hope you surround yourself with people who actually deserve your loyalty. Ethan deserved it. Olivia deserved it. Dr. Brennan and my colleagues deserved it. Jasper and our ridiculous rescue dogs deserved it. These were the people who showed up without being asked, who supported without keeping score, who loved without conditions. 6 months after the trial, Ethan and I started the adoption process. We'd talked about kids for years but kept postponing. Life felt stable now. The legal fees were paid off. The emotional wounds were scabbing over. We had room in our house and our hearts for someone who needed what we could offer. The adoption agency asked about family support. I answered honestly. Ethan's family would be involved. Mine would not. The social worker didn't ask follow-up questions. I suspect she'd heard similar stories. They matched us with a 4-year-old boy named Leo who'd been in foster care since infancy. He had enormous brown eyes and a skepticism about adults that broke my heart. Our first meeting lasted 20 minutes. He didn't say a single word, just watched us like we might disappear if he blinked. The second visit went better. He showed us his favorite truck. The third, he let Ethan push him on the swings. By the fifth, he fell asleep against my shoulder while I read to him. We brought him home on a Saturday in April. He clutched a garbage bag containing everything he owned, 3 outfits, 2 books, and a stuffed elephant with 1 ear missing. "This is your room," Ethan said, opening the door to the space we'd spent weeks preparing. Blue walls, bookshelves, a bed shaped like a race car. Leo looked around slowly, then up at us. "Mine?" "Yours," I confirmed. "Forever." His face crumpled. He cried for 20 minutes while we held him, this tiny person who'd spent his entire life being temporary, finally understanding that someone wanted to keep him. We became a family in the way that matters. Not through biology or obligation, but through choice and commitment. Leo started kindergarten and made friends. He learned to trust that when we said we'd pick him up, we actually showed up. He stopped hoarding food in his closet after realizing dinner would always be available. I never told him about my biological family. There was nothing to tell, really. What would I say? Your grandmother and grandfather didn't think I was worth investing in. Your aunt sued me for money I never had. Those weren't his stories to carry. Instead, we built new stories. Birthday parties with cake and too many presents. Summer vacations to Universal Studios Florida and New York City. Regular dinners with Ethan's parents, Maria and Robert, who'd claimed me as their daughter long before the courthouse validated my orphan status. Leo called them Grandma Maria and Grandpa Robert, and never questioned why there weren't more grandparents. Dr. Brennan retired and left me her share of the practice. I became a partner, which meant longer hours, but also the satisfaction of shaping the clinic's culture. We hired 3 new veterinarians. One had gone through foster care herself. We became friends over late-night emergency surgeries and a shared understanding of what it meant to build yourself from nothing. Jasper died when Leo was 7. We buried him in the backyard beneath the oak tree. Leo made a marker from painted stones. He was a good cat, he said seriously. The best. I agreed. We adopted another 3-legged cat. Leo named her Tripod with the blunt honesty of childhood. Life continued in its quiet way. Leo joined Little League. Ethan got promoted to assistant principal. I published a paper on feline diabetes management. We painted the house, refinanced the mortgage, planned a trip to Grand Teton National Park. Olivia got married and asked me to be her matron of honor. Her wedding was everything mine should have been, full of people who genuinely loved the couple, celebrating without restraint or hidden resentment. I gave a toast about chosen family being the truest kind of family, and half the room cried into their champagne. Occasionally, I wondered about Chloe, what she was doing, whether she learned anything from the trial, or just crafted a new narrative where she remained the victim. I didn't wonder often, though. Some doors closed completely, and trying to peek through the cracks only hurts you. Sarah sent a Christmas card 2 years after the trial. Just a generic store-bought card with a printed greeting and her signature. No note, no explanation, no apology. I threw it away without showing Ethan. David died when Leo was 9. I found out through an obituary alert. Apparently, I was still listed on some family tree website. The funeral was held at Summit Chapel, same place as Grandpa Richard's service. I didn't attend. Ethan offered to go with me for closure, but what closure? They'd already shown me exactly who they were. I sent flowers with a card that said simply, "Condolences to the family." Let them interpret that however they wanted. Leo asked about my parents eventually. He was 10, old enough to understand that most kids had more than one set of grandparents. We were sitting at the kitchen table doing homework when he said, "How come I never met your mom and dad?" Ethan looked up from grading papers. I set down my coffee cup. Sometimes families don't work out the way they should. My parents and I had very different ideas about what family means. We decided it was healthier not to be in each other's lives. He processed this with the seriousness he brought to everything. Did they hurt you? Not in ways that left bruises, but yes, they hurt me. I'm sorry. I smiled. I'm not. If things were different, I might not have ended up with you. And you're worth every hard thing that came before. He climbed into my lap, gangly and too big for it, but trying anyway. You're my real mom. You're my real son. Ethan took a photo of us like that, tangled together at the kitchen table, papers and books scattered, both smiling. He printed it and put it on his desk at school. When people asked about his family, that's the photo he showed them. I thought about Judge Ramirez's words often over the years, about surrounding myself with people who deserved my loyalty. I built that life deliberately, brick by brick, relationship by relationship. No one got access to me anymore based on biology or obligation. They earned it through their actions. The clinic thrived. My partnership meant financial security for the first time in my adult life. We took Leo to Universal Studios Florida, to New York City, to visit colleges when he turned 15 and started thinking about his future. He wanted to be a teacher like Ethan. We supported him completely, opened a college savings account, and promised him he'd graduate debt-free. You don't have to do that, he said when we showed him the account balance. Yes, we do, Ethan replied. That's what parents are supposed to do. Leo never took it for granted. He maintained a part-time job through high school, saved his money, thanked us constantly. I told him he didn't need to thank us. This was just love in its practical form. He thanked us anyway. I got a letter from an attorney when Leo was 16. Sarah had died. The estate was being settled. As next of kin, I was entitled to half the assets. Chloe was contesting this, claiming I'd been estranged by choice and didn't deserve anything. The irony was almost funny. Almost. I called the attorney. I'm declining any inheritance. Give it all to Chloe. Are you certain? The estate is valued at approximately $400,000. The Maple Avenue house, savings accounts, investments. Your share would be significant. I don't want anything from them. I never did. He tried to talk me through the implications. I cut him off. Draw up whatever paperwork makes this final. I'm done. Ethan asked if I was sure. I'd never been more certain of anything. Money from them would feel contaminated, like accepting payment for mistreatment and calling it love. We didn't need it. What we built was clean and ours. Chloe got everything. The house where we grew up, all the money, every physical reminder of our parents. I hoped it made her happy. I hoped she finally felt secure. I hoped it was worth what she'd sacrificed to get it. Mostly, I hoped I never had to think about her again. Leo graduated high school with honors. We threw him a party in our backyard with his friends, teachers, and the family we'd chosen. Grandma Maria made her famous lasagna. Grandpa Robert gave an embarrassing speech about watching Leo grow up. Olivia brought her kids, who tackled Leo with hugs and demanded he do tricks. This was family. This abundance of people who showed up because they wanted to, who celebrated each other's victories without resentment or scorekeeping, who loved without conditions attached. Leo left for college in the fall. We helped him move into his dorm, met his roommate, embarrassed him with too many hugs. He texted us that night. "Thanks for everything. I love you guys." Ethan and I sat in Leo's empty room, holding hands in the silence. "We did good," he said. "Yeah, we really did." The house felt different without Leo's presence, but not empty. We had each other, the practice, friends who came over for game nights and impromptu dinners. We traveled more, took the trip to Scotland we'd been planning for years, hiked through the Grand Canyon, spent 2 weeks on the Outer Banks just reading and walking on the beach. Life was full of the things that mattered and free of the things that didn't. No toxic obligation, no one-sided relationships, no pretending that DNA meant someone deserved access to your peace. I thought about the girl I'd been, 16 years old, working at Evergreen Grocers, hiding money in a shoebox, dreaming of college while her parents bought her sister a car. I thought about the scared student taking out crushing loans, the veterinary student crying on a plane after a grandfather's funeral, the daughter helping her mother recover from a stroke while planning her own exile. That girl survived everything thrown at her. She built a life worth living. She became someone who knew her worth wasn't determined by whether her parents recognized it. Sometimes at night, I'd stand in Leo's doorway and look at his empty room. The race car bed replaced now with a regular one for when he came home on breaks. His old toys packed in boxes in the attic. Photos of his high school graduation covering the walls. I'd think about the choice we made to adopt him, to love him intentionally and completely. That was the revenge, I realized. Not a courtroom victory, though Judge Ramirez's words had felt satisfying in the moment. The real revenge was building exactly the kind of family I'd needed and never had. It was breaking every cruel pattern and replacing it with something better. It was proving that you could come from nothing and create everything. Ethan would find me there sometimes, standing in the doorway. He'd wrap his arms around me from behind and rest his chin on my shoulder. We wouldn't need to say anything. He understood. Leo came home for Thanksgiving his freshman year. He'd grown somehow in 3 months, stood taller, spoke with new confidence about his classes and his friends and his plans. "Over pie," he said, "I told my roommate about how you guys adopted me." "Yeah, what did you say?" "That I'm the luckiest person alive. That I got the best parents in the world." I couldn't speak around the lump in my throat. Ethan squeezed my hand under the table. "I mean it," Leo continued. "Some of the kids in my dorm, they're calling home crying because their families make them miserable. Meanwhile, I get to come home to you. That's everything." Later, after Leo had gone to bed, and Ethan had fallen asleep on the couch, I sat in the kitchen with a cup of tea and thought about the long, strange journey that had brought me here. All the rejection and dismissal, the lawsuit, the lies in court, Judge Ramirez's sharp words cutting through the pretense. I wouldn't change any of it. The pain had taught me discernment. The betrayal had shown me what real love looked like by contrast. The years of independence had made me strong enough to build something lasting. My parents gave me one gift, though they never meant to. They showed me exactly what not to do, exactly who not to be. Every decision I made as a parent came from asking what they would have done, then choosing the opposite. They'd given Chloe everything and made her weak. They'd given me nothing and made me unbreakable. In their cruelty, they'd freed me to become someone better than they ever were. That was the revenge. Not destruction, but creation. Not bitterness, but joy. Not isolation, but belonging. I finished my tea, turned off the lights, and went upstairs to where Ethan slept. Down the hall, Leo was home safe. In the backyard, Tripod probably prowled through the garden. Tomorrow, we'd make breakfast together and maybe go hiking. Next week, Leo would go back to school and Ethan and I would return to our comfortable rhythm. This was the life I'd built from nothing. This was what winning looked like. Judge Ramirez was right. I'd surrounded myself with people who deserved my loyalty. And in doing so, I'd created something my parents never managed. A family that actually functioned, built on truth and choice and love that didn't need to be earned because it was freely given. The past was done. The future stretched ahead, full of possibility and peace. I was done carrying them. Done wondering what I could have done differently. Done mourning people who were never going to change. I had everything that mattered, and it was more than I could have ever imagined. What kind of family have you chosen for yourself?